Welcome to my channel, guys. Today I'm going to be making, it's actually the first one I'm doing is a toilet for a Father's Day gift. I'm just making the toilet white so it looks like it's porcelain, and here I am adding the powder to the liquid mixture. I'm sure I've said it before and I'll say it again. I always add the powder to the liquid because otherwise you tend to get more clumps if you add the water to the existing powder, because then you have to basically stir it a lot more. And I normally just pour it in and then let it try and settle a bit and then stir it up. Sometimes I still get small little lumps. It's not always 100% perfect, but I do try not to have any lumps. But obviously you can't stir for too long, because mainly also not to get too many air bubbles in it. It does tend to thicken reasonably quickly. I do try and make it a little bit more watery so that I have more time to pour the molds. But yeah, now and again you're going to end up with a lump, but most of the time if you do have a little lump, it's hidden inside the actual mold anyway, so you don't really notice. You're never going to get 100% perfect mold. You're always going to get a couple little bubbles here and there. I'm yet to see anybody that doesn't have at least one little bubble or something. I wish I could, but look, they're handmade, and that's just one of the things that you have to put up with. I think that's why it's handcrafted, and not, well, most of them are never ever identical, so they're all custom made. So here I'm just giving it a little stir, hoping to get 90% of the little lumps out and pouring it into the mold. The toilet mold is actually quite nice. It doesn't have too many little sections where the air bubbles or whatever. There you can actually see there's a couple of little lumps that I didn't get, but like I said, it falls into the mold and most of the time you don't even notice that they're there. Yeah, so getting back to the toilet, it doesn't have too many places where air bubbles can get trapped, so I'm not too pokey about making sure that I get any air bubbles that are trapped inside out. Now, unmolding it, there's always stress. I stress about unmolding every single one of my molds because I'm always scared that something's going to snap off. So, yeah, there is a bit of stress in unmolding the items. Here you can see I actually do tend to take a little bit of time to unmold it. The main part is where the actual cistern part is at the back, because there's a little lip that the mold sits in, and yeah, I always try and make sure that I don't try and pull it too hard, because I would hate to have, I haven't had this one done. My little coffee cup or tea cup, I do have nightmares about unmolding, because the handle a lot of the time ends up snapping off. So there, it did unmold nicely. I did do the lid, but unfortunately the lid had one little air bubble right in the front of the actual seat, so I'm not using the lid in with the candle. Right, so here again my soya wax, measuring it out, putting it into my double boiler, which is actually a little mini urn. I'm sure I've mentioned that before as well. Yeah, so again I have measured out exactly how much wax goes into each of these containers. So when I do it, I work out most of the time. Sometimes if I'm doing 2, there might be a little bit left over, but if I'm just doing 1 candle, most of the time exactly what I have measured out is enough to fill that exact mold. So here I'm just getting it melted and to the right temperature to add the fragrance. You can see I've got my syringe there, which I use to measure out the amount of fragrance that I'm going to be putting into the wax. This one I did a blue color because I thought it would be nice, as if the water in the toilet was blue. It's actually going to have fish in it, which not that you have fish in your toilet, I hope, but you know, the dads like their fishing. Well, a lot of them like their fishing, and I thought that would be quite fun, having 2 little fish inside the toilet. So I'm doing the actual color of the wax in a blue, and then now I'm going to just wait for it to get to the right temperature, and then I can add the fragrance. So let's give it a bit of time, and then we will get back to stirring in the fragrance. So you can see I had the thermometer there. It's the correct temperature for the fragrance, and putting in the fragrance into the wax. I use normally, like I think I've said before, you can use between 6 and 10%. Some of them I use less. A lot of the time I use 10%. I just like a stronger fragrance. So there I am just timing the 2 minutes that I need to stir the fragrance into the wax, just to get it all incorporated nicely, so that you get a nice smell when you are burning your candle, or even when it's standing, it still gives off a nice smell. And now I'm just making sure that it drops down to the pouring temperature, and I'm going to now put my wick on. I did end up getting a little roll of the smaller wick stickers. They're not the peel off ones. These are just basically almost like a little double-sided tape dot, and they just basically stick onto the bottom of your metal wick holder. And putting it into the toilet, and again just waiting for it to get to the correct pouring temperature. I must say the little toilets are actually really sweet. The mold is lovely. It just looks exactly like a toilet, so, which is quite fun, I thought. So now, yeah, it unfortunately had got below the pouring temperature, so I just had to quickly put it back into the water just to heat it up a little bit more, and putting it into the toilet. And as you can see, the amount that I weighed out and melted is exactly the amount that I needed for the toilet. So that is how I work it out. What I do is I weigh the actual mold without water, and then I put water in it to where I think I'm going to need it, and then I just minus the 2, and that is the weight of how much wax I need. So that's how I work that out. And then that was just a time delay of the candle drying. It's come out quite a nice blue, and then those are my 2 fish that I'm going to be adding to the toilet, like I said. Just using my little heat gun to heat it up, melt it a little bit so that I can put the fish into the toilet. Those wicks are my homemade wicks. I use the pure cotton, and then I just basically melt wax and drop them in, and then put on the little metal wick holders. So then here is the keyring that I did. That is polymer clay. I will be putting up a video of how I made those key rings. Just putting the rings on, and then the actual key ring, split ring that you use to slide your keys on. They actually came out really nicely. I didn't show a tray that I have done, but I just used one of my other trays that I already had, that I had made before this. But you can use any tray that you like. You can even go and get one from the shop, a little wooden tray or something like that would be perfectly fine. So there we go. There is our little toilet with our fish in it. I think it came out really nicely. And there is the little tray. It's the wavy tray that I have the mold of for Father's Day. So I think that looks really sweet, and I'm sure any dad would be happy to get that. So guys, thanks again for watching, and until next time, have a great one.